I'm Miss Emma. So I want to show you how we overcome one of the problems that teachers face and parents face. A child, let's say 3-4 years old, we're teaching them to read, because we teach them to read before they start school, just to prevent issues, because we never know what kind of instruction they're going to get. Some of the children aren't reading, but they've all got good phonemic awareness when they start. And if they don't, we've already started on an early intervention plan, and we've already told their teachers what they need. So it's all about early intervention. Okay, so the issue is that we can do oral comprehension. We can read to children, we can talk about it, we can ask them questions, that's brilliant. And then at the other side of it is we're teaching them to read, and we're often teaching them with a systematic phonics approach, speech to print, and we might be using decodable readers alongside their code level. So the graphemes they're learning, they're the decodable readers they're learning. So although we can do lots of great comprehension with just a very limited number of graphemes, it's harder. I know this because I've been writing these for over a decade. So the book shows the graphemes and the high frequency words. And I've got to think about every word has to be a word the child can figure out at their stage of development. Their decoding skills, the recognition of graphemes, the ability to blend those graphemes, which is their phonemic awareness. Okay, so we can also work out comprehension just using these graphemes. For example, our spot the king sentences. They've got to read the sentence they can read and then tell us which one makes sense or which one is the better sentence. Depends on what the sentence is. So here the best sentence would be... So this is where the two sort of ideas collide. And really what we've faced is two very different approaches to teaching reading or viewing the teaching of reading. One being the three-keying system, the whole language kind of approach, which is we want them to have sentences like this from the beginning. We're going to get them to guess from first sound, miss out words, memorize, what have you. A lot of high frequency words that they call sight words. So learning the high frequency words on flashcards so that they can read, in air quotes, the books, but using a lot of prediction. Look at the, well, that's a caterpillar, so what's the next one going to be? Look at the spider. So the idea being that they predict from the picture. Look at the beetle.
Look at the grasshopper. A lot of children do learn to read like this because they can not only look at the words, but they do actually understand the mapping between the phonemes to graphemes. And there's about 5% of children you could just not show up and just give them books and they're going to figure it out themselves. But there's an awful lot of children that don't, and they're the children that we're really focused on, especially the 30% or so who might have poor phonemic awareness. They really need this explicit instruction. But this is the idea. High frequency words. Mum is a doctor. So what do you think Dad is? Mum is a police officer. What do you think Dad is? So a lot of that, look at the grasshopper, look at the snail, look at the worm. So that's the sort of the other spectrum. So that's the other side, the opposite, if you like, to this.
So parents that are watching, this is the argument really in a nutshell. You can see this is your whole language, balanced literacy, what have you, versus phonics. The reality is that teachers know neither of them is the golden ticket. We are not programming children. They all come to school with different experiences, different levels of phonemic awareness, different language skills, etc. Different understanding of words. That's a big thing as well. So there's all these variables that as teachers we have to cope with. So it's not a case of a black and white, right, now I'm teaching phonics, hooray, now I'm going to meet the needs of every child. Teachers know this, and teachers have been saying, stop making it this black and white reading war argument. So we have a lot of resources from publishers and what have you that sell us this stuff that says we want to think about the rich language and we want them to be able to, use all these skills to be able to read with comprehension from the beginning. And then you've got the other side, which is the phonics based, which is saying, no, we can't do that. They can't read this. They can't go that. So we have to build it up. We have to give them sentences like, for example, in our phonics, which is starting with s, at, p, it, n. And because I'm a teacher and I know what actually happens in real classrooms, and I'm teaching real children, I realise, do you know what, this just isn't working. This part doesn't work, prediction and guessing and whatever for the highest number of children. Some children, yes. And just the phonics with decodable readers and what have you, that can be really limiting too. Have a look at the work from Castles and their latest paper, or last year I think it was now, talking about saying that we don't know about decodable readers. We don't know how long they should have them or the use or whatever. It's too early days because researchers are so much further behind what we're doing in real classrooms. Been using decodable readers for years, but the research now, it takes ages to catch up. I've been code mapping high frequency words. Only in the last couple of years have been researchers been saying, oh, perhaps we should teach sight words as we do with all other words. Well, yes, ask a teacher. The other or the easy, depending on the word that comes after it. Now, we hear a lot about the science of reading, and I want you to hold on to something. Accepted theories are the best explanations available so far for how the world works. They've been thoroughly tested, which is what we're talking about with science of reading, and are supported by multiple lines of evidence, which is what we talk about with the science of reading. They've provided useful in generating explanations and opening up new areas for research. However, science is always a work in progress, and even theories change. And actually, in education, teachers aren't across the board accepting the current theory. So perhaps it's time for a new one. So let me show you how we can use this sentence with children who are in the very early stages of learning to read, and we're also teaching phonics systematically. So what can we do? How can we kind of bridge these together? It is a lot less stressful because the children can get on with it if they have phonemic awareness. So whilst we're developing the phonemic awareness really robustly, we're doing this so that they can self-teach, if you like, even when they're 3 and 4 years old. So how do we do this? What is this amazing breakthrough? Well, let me show you. S, A, T, P, I, Quite simply, There is a speech sound monster for every speech sound of English. So rather than using the phonetic symbols that you see here with these speech sound monsters, the children as young as 18 months actually, our youngest children at the moment, can fall in love with these speech sound monsters and understand that they all have their own phoneme. They don't need to learn the phonetic symbols, but it's the same principle of the IPA, which is used universally. So this is something that speech pathologists are embracing with open arms because they can see that we've bridged the gap. So how does it work? Children as young as 2 can work out this question, this sentence, just by following the monster sounds to say the words, to work out the sentence. This is also explicit phonemic awareness training because they're just working with the speech sounds. Now we start with just 6 so that we can build up the idea of decoding and encoding with just phonemic awareness.
Great. Excellent. Turn the page. Next one.
And only a few weeks later,
the man and the dog in the gap.
Awesome. What does yours say? Read. Point to the words.
The man is in the kitchen.
Good. Aria.
Pam went to the shops to get a packet of chips.
Awesome. Mila.
Pat sat in the pan.
reading with or without the monsters.
But 2-year-olds are able to read these sentences. Let me follow the monster sounds to say the words for you if you don't yet know the monsters. Then you can tell me what the sentence is. Who, gave, gave, our, to each a, teacher, some, beautiful, beautiful, pink, or ours, flowers. It also means the children become familiar with things like the schwa when they're 2 and 3 years old.
So we're explaining things in ways that very young children understand. So we're talking about pictures of speech sounds. Ask a child for the first sound in dog and they might say woof.
So we don't talk about long sounds or short sounds or big or fat or magic or silent or anything or tricky. We're just talking about speech sounds. So when the children are thinking about the speech sounds they use in words, which we use our duck hands to segment, duck hands, lines and numbers, but the children are thinking about the speech sounds. Well, if we were to take a picture of the speech sound with our magic speech sound camera, what might it look like? And what we discover is it changes depending on the words. 3-year-olds understand what we're doing. So speech to print. What is this a picture of? Which speech sound? It's going to depend on the word. We can't say these letters say whatever. They don't say anything anyway. But what speech sounds do they represent? We don't know. We don't know unless they're in a word. And even when you're in preschool, it's fun exploring that. It's no longer this hard and difficult task that children face in school when taught the concepts in other ways. Let's change the approach.
I am off, said Dan. He ran and skipped. Stop. Skipped. a picture of up the steps into the loft. He jumped. Stop. Jumped. That is a picture of into the old chest and hid. Come and get me, he yelled. Stop. Yelled. That is a picture of Reg and Liz Hunt's head. Stop. Hunt Ed. That is a picture of a silly shot and a bird.
So they'll read this monster sentence. Who gave our teacher some beautiful pink flowers? So they can then go back and read it again using the working memory to hold on to those words that they've figured out to create the sentence and work out the question. And then think about the answer. Was it Stan? Stan, one of our green code level words. Or was it Nin? Nin. So they can write the answer very early on.
They're still learning their phonics systematically, but we're using code mapping and monster mapping. So that all of the skills that we know are needed, but we're bringing it all together so it makes sense to children even if they haven't even started school yet. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and the children love it. Their brains love it because it makes sense. But we're still scaffolding, so we're not going to start with that sentence I showed you before. We'll start with this. However, as soon as they learn all of the monsters, which they learn in a week or so, it means that it opens up a whole world. But in preschool, within a couple of weeks, this is where they can be.
So look at the monsters on the code mapped text. It's code mapped to show where those speech sounds are going to map with the graphemes, and the monsters show them how to pronounce those graphemes, those sound picks. So code mapping, which is our patented technique we've been using for years, which helps the children to see visually how those graphemes are segmented in words. But this doesn't help if the children don't know what those graphemes represent in those words. So that's why I had to take it further.
Code mapped text, SSP Code Mapped text, is great if you've got an adult there who can follow the sounds for you. It's brilliant. And if the adult understands the techniques, like this is a child who can read, we're teaching her to spell. It's great if you've got someone there who understands how to do this.
Not far away is Mama Frog. She loves to strum. Now let's do that again. Strum and hum. Read the whole thing.
Not far away is Mama Frog. She loves to strum and hum.
Beautiful.
But what if there isn't anybody there? Isn't anyone at home who can read?
I wanted to segment these for children, especially my dyslexic learners who might struggle even more with the phonemic awareness segmentation of words. Who, gave, that's split vowel digraph. Our, to each, teacher, some, but you, if, all, beautiful, put ink, pink, for all, ours. That's fine, but if children are on their own, they need to know how to pronounce the graphemes. And that's what the monsters do. That's why I introduced them. Also, because a lot of my non-verbal children can't tell me the sounds they can hear, so they showed me the monsters. So the monsters, they can follow the monster sounds to say the words. Then they can look at it without the monster mapping, because now they know the sentence, they know the words, so they can map it If they're not sure, they can't remember, they go back and have a look at the monsters again. So we're showing the children where those phonemes to graphemes map, that's a phonics. We're going even further because we're actually showing them how to pronounce them. Now, SSP teachers who have been doing this for, code mapping definitely for probably 7-8 years or so, and monster mapping since I introduced those probably 4, is it 5? I can't remember, 4, 5, whatever years ago. The problem they have is that it takes forever to code map words and also to monster map them. And you've also obviously got to check with the IPA, and that can vary. But we have the base of, of the IPA, the British speech sounds, even though they'll translate it into their accents. But the problem was time. It takes ages to manually code map the words and check them. And then you've got to add the monsters, my goodness. So, and of course, people can use the monster map, use the resources in the members area. So they're doing that now, but it takes a while and teachers are so time poor. And also children want to just get on with it on their own. If they see a word they're not sure of, they want to be able to type it into the monster mapping software and it show the word code mapped and also monster mapped, so they can see, oh, okay, that's where the graphemes split, they're the sound picks, and this is how I pronounce those sound picks. So if I follow the sounds to say the word, here's the word. So if they come to a word they're not sure of, they can find out what the word is independently. And they can type in whole sentences because context matters. The meaning of the words matter. It might be monsters, ed, read. I read that book. It might be eed. I want to read that book. The word looks the same, but it depends on the context. That changes the monsters. The children might also want to know how to spell a word. So rather than typing the word into the software and it's showing the code mapping and the monster mapping if they want that as well, or just the monster mapping if they want that, what they can also do is type the word in monsters. So if they wanted to know how to spell that word read, they could type in the monsters e-d. And they could type in the monsters in a sentence and it would show them the correct spelling. This is potentially groundbreaking. What's happened is the idea I had for the new way forward, the wonderful James and Lisa have made this a reality. We're now very, very close to releasing this software. The software that allows children to read and spell even if there is no one in their house that speaks English or who is literate. So if they see this writing and there's no one around them, they'll be able to use the software. The monsters can help them work out the answer, still focused on the meaning, using a wider variety of words, not just Sapin. From the beginning, we can expose them to other graphemes, but in a way that they understand and they're ready for. They can explore graphemes that they won't cover in their explicit phonics teaching, even though they'll probably explore them code mapping their high frequency words. But it means they're focused on all the skills that we know from research is necessary. But what we're doing is we're saying we're changing the way we're applying what we already know, and we're moving forward because I know a lot more than the researchers are actually investigating at the moment about how children can learn to read and spell far more quickly and easily with different teaching techniques and tools before they even start school in the vast majority of cases. So this is no longer something that children in the beginning stages can't work with. I'll be using this within my Steps to Reading and Spelling playgroups in the UK. Videoing very young children, showing how we're wiring their brains for reading and spelling. So Steps to Reading, you'll see them using the software. We're collaborating with groups who are interested in research, interested in global solutions for eradicating illiteracy and for addressing the Matthew effect. because the reading wars aren't doing that. The reading wars have been going on for over 2 decades. It's time for a fresh voice, a new vision. It's time for code mapping and monster mapping.